this computer. Okay, now I have something that I wanted to talk about, and I will, but a little bit earlier, Fiona was asking me about sleep apnea. And I've had one experience with apnea where this fellow came, he was actually a medical researcher doing uh, research on his own sleep apnea. And he was investigating different contraptions on how to fix it. So he had a vested interest. But a friend, one of the Shen people that I was with at the time was a medical doctor, and he'd encouraged this fellow to come to see what I could do. And he did. He came over from San Francisco, and I worked on him. And in the middle of his session, he went really deep, and all of a sudden he had an attack of sleep apnea. I was working at his solar plexus, and it just sorted out, and he was fine, relaxed, and continued sleeping. Well, but when he woke up, he wouldn't believe that he'd had an attack, and so he never came back. But anyway, if you do work with anybody with sleep apnea, I would recommend that you work at the solar plexus.
Mm.
Carmel, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Sorry I'm late.
Yeah, well, you're here. Um, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was an idea that comes up for people frequently when they're working with their clients, and it has to do with the concept of putting confidence into their cough. Well, unfortunately, we aren't able to put emotions into somebody. We can share emotions and as for example, when two people fall deeply in love and they just fire each other up as they come into contact with each other. Uh, but the way that Shen works is to relieve painful emotions because the painful emotions are contracted. The body contracts around a painful emotion and traps it in the body where it affects us, as you know, in many ways. Uh, so by relaxing, when we work with Shen, what we're doing is a careful sequence of relaxation of the body parts in the body. And so when we do that properly, and like the painful emotion will come to the surface, be felt, be observed, be remembered, and over time dissipate to where it doesn't bother us anymore. But pleasant emotions have nothing to trap them in the body. As I've mentioned before in a lot of my talks, it's really unfortunate that we would like to keep those emotions, but we can't.
Mm.
We're really happy and it for a time and then it just sort of disappears because it just sort of flows out and we don't hold it. Uh, so but try as we might, we're not able to say, for example, to try to put confidence in a person. Confidence is a state of a personal feeling that occurs after the person has, we would say, become confident. They become confident after they have done some activity or taken on some task and completed a task that they were perhaps worried about. After they completed it, they they would say, well, now I'm confident that I can do it again in the future. I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm confident. So emotions of that nature are earned by your internal act by your personal actions. So, am I making myself clear, or is there anything you'd like to add to that, or want to jump in and say something here?
Yeah,
Uh,
oh, sorry, who's that?
Go ahead, go ahead.
So basically, there's more space, shall we say, to achieve those feelings of confidence. But
Yeah,
you still have to do something to feel the confidence.
yeah, you build it by your actions.
Yeah. Hmm.
Somebody else was asking something. Who was that?
No, I was just going to kind of, I suppose, share my thoughts around. This is often one of the main thing. A lot of clients put their reasons for wanting Shen is to gain more confidence, isn't it? I'm sure the rest of you have seen a lot of the clients putting that. But I was kind of thinking more around, as what Richard say, a lot of the positive emotions, we often can't hold it, it's just because it's very expensive and then it just disappears. But on the flip side of the confidence, I guess, where a lot of clients through the trauma, have this very deep sense of feeling they're not good enough, feeling that, they are not being heard or for whatever reason, in that area. So I was kind of just thinking around when we work on the Shen, work on the CAF, perhaps could be other centers for them to help them release this feeling of inadequacy and the feeling of not good enough. When again, once they release, it will slowly allow the space for them to, feel better about themselves and be more confident. I don't know. So just sharing what I'm thinking really. Primarily, when on the table work, we really work a lot on the negative emotions that the clients are, well, don't really like to use the word negative, but whatever the client is feeling, that they're holding in their system through the trauma that's affecting their perception of how they see themselves or how they feel or how they experience their life.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
There you are.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you'd like to discuss about that or about other sessions you've had or other questions you've had? Anybody?
Yeah,
Yeah, Rose.
well, pretty much the same, I guess, is what Helena stated. I would have thought that getting rid of shame, guilt, low self-esteem, and feeling bad about yourself, if those feelings have dissipated, would we not feel more confident in ourselves?
Say that again. I didn't quite follow that.
If the feelings of guilt, shame, low self-esteem have dissipated, would we not feel confident within ourselves or about ourselves as a result of getting rid of all these unwanted emotions?
Well, let's see. Now, if a person had been feeling shame about something they had done, there this would lead to them feeling guilty about whatever it was that they were done. And in the process of it, it seems to me that they would continue feeling that guilt until they had done something to resolve it with the other party or whatever it was that they'd done. They needed to reconcile with the other person, apologize to the other person, or something like that. In other words, there would be an unfinished action that they would need to complete before they could get rid of the guilt. That makes sense?
Mhm.
That would be something that you couldn't do for them on the table. And it would be the kind of thing that, while we're not supposed to and don't intend to be counselors or advisors, we always do end up advising our clients, okay, well, now this will work better for you, or uh, anyway, that's the way I see it, that to rid themselves of the guilt, they have to do something in current life to settle the case. I know that I'm thinking about a time many years ago, um, when I was about 8 years old, I guess. The teacher that we had an after-school activity with the boys where they were building model airplanes. Well, I'd been building model airplanes by myself for a couple of years, and I'd ended up with a really nice one. So I didn't join that. And until later, I wanted them to see what I'd done. So I joined and showed them my plane, and everybody was all excited about it, except that the person who was in the group who had really done well, I'd kind of shut him out. And I remember going to him many years later at a class reunion. I'd felt guilty about that. So I went to him and I said, I'm really sorry I did that. And he said, I don't even remember the incident. And so it was just sort of evaporated. But anyway, anybody else have something? Yes, Sharanya.
Um, I know this is interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people do on their forms say they want more confidence or they want to feel better about themselves and
Yeah.
speak out more. And I always say to them, the results of Shen will show up in your life. It may not release, things might not happen on the table around it because that's more of a bigger end of experience, an experience that will happen as a result of Shen, that building of confidence, self-empowerment. And so it's always a tricky one, isn't it? Because they write these things down and then you work on them and then you do an evaluation and they might say, oh, well, I've had the physical release and I feel better with my back and they might say, oh, well, I still don't feel like I'm able to speak out. And of course, that's something that will come. These things do come eventually, but it's also depends on how much Shen they have as well. But you do still see increments of change, and they don't necessarily see that. They come back, and you say, "Well, but remember when you said that to your husband, and you wouldn't normally say that to your husband," and so it's like they don't necessarily see the changes either, and they do. Some of them do, of course, but it's for us to highlight that what we see in them as well. That's what I noticed, and confidence is a result of
Yes.
empowerment. Speaking out, yeah, not an immediate thing that will happen, is it, on the table?
Yes.
It's the result of Shen as it shows up in our life as we go through our life.
Yeah.
In between sessions and.
Well, there's no question but what Shen can be life-changing.
Mm.
Anybody have an issue they'd like to discuss?
It's not always that they will, after several sessions, they won't always say, "Oh, I now feel more confident." It doesn't come across like that, isn't it? They might sort of give you little um, episodes of what happened, maybe at work or at home or whatever, that they may not recognize themselves, but maybe the partner or maybe somebody at work, notice the change about how they can start to speak up and be more assertive, but they don't always see that, oh, my confidence is improving in that sense. So it's very subtle, I think, can be very subtle and over time with the empowerment and the changes. I think depends on other issues, like sort of shame and guilt are probably a lot deeper, isn't it, in terms of getting the release. So kind of does depend on what they went through in terms of the trauma and at what stage they experience the trauma.
Okay, well, I guess we've covered that issue pretty thoroughly.
Mm.
Lauren, did you have something? Oh, okay.
This is just a bit personal. I just like to say that regarding my health, my situation, I'm in remission at the moment, and I'm feeling a lot stronger, a lot more positive about things. And I had 6 Shen sessions with Adriana, part of her internship, which she came up and she did 6 Shen sessions with me, which were really excellent for me. They were, I did a lot of emoting, and it was things like anger and fear and being alone, and a lot of deeper issues. So thank you, all of you, for your caring and thinking of me. And I just hope I continue to go from strength to strength, so.
Wonderful. That's really good to hear.
Good to hear that. Thank you for sharing.
Fiona, did you have something? Oh, you put your hand up. I thought you were.
No, I was just
Okay, that's all right.
pressing a thumbs up to Corona.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just go back? I know you've spoken about sleep apnea. I haven't really a lot of experience, but I work with somebody who has it and has one of these face gadgets which they can't use. But I was just doing a relaxation session with them, and literally they would be going to sleep almost every 2 minutes or something. How, and obviously you really don't want them to stop breathing. How do you get over that?
Well, I can't tell you how to get over it.
Or into it?
What I said was that in my limited experience working at the solar plexus, stop the attack.
Okay.
Which suggests that it's something like panic.
Yeah.
Well, if it's panic, a panic attack is something that we would certainly consider working at the solar plexus and probably at the root as the particular therapeutic approach.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
I can.
Lauren.
I worked with somebody who had sleep apnea, and I would say with Richard, he's right. I worked with them at their solar plexus, and it was dramatic change for them over the course of their series with Shen and the sleep apnea.
Very good. Good to hear.
Initially, the first few sessions, they were falling asleep on the bed and stopping breathing. And I just continued to work. I just carried on.
Yeah.
So you just ignored it. You didn't prompt to breathe or heavy breathe them, you know, kind of just to trigger their own breathing. You just ignored it.
Ignored it and carried on. And
Okay.
that was the right thing to work.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe 3 or 4 sessions later, I went back to the solar plexus again. I can't remember the whole sequence of the series, but there was a marked difference between how they were breathing and what they were doing. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
The desire to, the need to breathe is inbred, and even though the person doesn't breathe for a long time, eventually they will.
Yes.
We've been doing Shen now. Well, I guess the first I began was in 1978, and I have never heard of anybody dying on a Shen cradle.
That's good.
Reassuring.
And I'm sure I would have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to know.
Well, okay. If there's nothing more, I think I'll stop the recording. And let's see.
Richard, sorry, Richard. Before you stop the recording, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
I'm having a client at the moment who came with some troubles with the solar plexus and cath. She wanted to try the IBS protocol, which I did with her. She was completely, or is, she was completely blocked up, as in digestive system blocked up, and she was on lots of laxatives and whatnot. And after the first IBS protocol, seemed to have a lot of movement, but it took a lot of work to open up her lines. And I completed the series with her, and she was thrilled, really happy with her sessions, and she felt like she'd made a lot of progress. But then I got a call from her recently saying she's all blocked up again, back to square one, which I was surprised by. But I've seen her today actually, and it's all really blocked up again. I can feel it in my flows. And I was wondering, what, anybody else had that before, where they've done the IBS protocol and had to do it a second time? Or is there any advice to get it moving again? Because it feels like...
Well, that's a problem. And it's probably not going to be resolved just by Shen.
Oh.
It'll need something going on nutritionally
Okay.
to get that working again.
Okay. I thought maybe it was just emotional.
No, it's not a failure of Shen. It's the digestive, the way the colon works is well, it's too long a description to try to go into, but the medical process is taking place, but it's you probably are aware that the gut goes through a squeezing motion like this, and it does that. I could explain some of it, but it's long and complex and has to do with ion exchange and calcium ion exchange and zinc involvement and all sorts of things. But beyond that, there isn't much that I could say. All right, then. Anything else?
No.
All right. Let me.
Before you go, no, it's a good point, this, because people come with different conditions, as we know, and there could be something physical going on underneath it. we have no ideas going on. And I often say to people, get checked out physically as well, especially if it's a back issue or because I think it's a tendency to be real about it all, isn't there? About having that sort of reality check. We think we can fix a lot of things, but there's some things that, and it's disappointing, isn't it, Lauren? It's disappointing when you do all the work and then they come back and say, oh, well, it's all come back. And it's like, so we just don't know. And, but it's a good point about that, you know, we're getting people to have physical checkups as well, especially with pain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complications.
Yeah, I would certainly enlist the help of a nutritional practitioner, or have them, you know, get somebody that can give them some nutritional advice, because there are things that they can do there, but they're beyond what we would be in a position to recommend. Somebody else needs to do that for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fluids.
Okay. Last chance. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.